As today brings another big step on the march to marriage equality, Republicans in Texas look to take 2 steps back. In the courts, the pace of progress is picking up. This afternoon, the last state without a legal challenge to its same-sex marriage ban got one, as 7 couples filed a federal lawsuit in the U.S. District Court in Fargo. It comes after the Supreme Court rejected a bid to halt same-sex marriages in Oregon Wednesday, joining the list of every federal court that's looked at this question since last June's strikedown of DOMA, the Defense of Marriage Act, and concluded that such bans are unconstitutional. Most Americans now agree. In a new Washington Post poll out today, 56% support same-sex marriage. And regardless of their personal preference, 50% of Americans now say the Constitution gives gays and lesbians the right to marry. That's a big deal. 50% saying same-sex marriage is a constitutional right. Just don't tell that to Texas Republicans, who are still busy trying to pray the gay away. A draft of the new Texas GOP platform endorses so-called reparative therapy, quote, for those seeking to escape from the homosexual lifestyle. That sounds quite nice, like a visit to a spa, perhaps. Except, of course, that major health organizations reject such conversion therapy for causing significant harm. And in 2 states, it's explicitly banned from use on minors. But never mind all that. The new language passed a key vote last night in Fort Worth, with Governor Rick Perry gracing the event. The full convention of nearly 10,000 delegates will take a final vote on the platform tomorrow. Joining me now is the Executive Director of the Log Cabin Republicans, Gregory T. Angelo, and Washington Bureau Chief of the Huffington Post, Ryan Grimm. Gregory and Ryan, thank you very much for coming here.
Oh, thanks for having me.
Thanks for having me, Richard.
Gregory, I'd like to start with you because, to be fair to the Texas Republicans, they did strip out some language about homosexuality tearing at the fabric of society, but I'd like to understand what your take is on where the Texas GOP is heading with this kind of platform language.
Yeah, well, first of all, thanks for having me on the show today. I will say that language saying that homosexuality tears at the fabric of society would not have been removed at all had Log Cabin Republicans and our allies at Metroplex Republicans called attention to it in a press conference last week. Unfortunately, there still remains in the Texas GOP an anti-gay fringe who is obsessed with inserting anti-gay language in the Texas party's platform. Not only are we pushing against language that says homosexuality tears at the fabric of society, we're looking to strip any sort of divisive language out of all Republican Party platforms. Platforms should be a list of principles around which candidates can coalesce and agree. It shouldn't be a litany of laws that you would like to see passed. Unfortunately, in the state of Texas, you have seen people on the platform committee in the Texas State GOP. Again, this is a small contingent of people, but who nonetheless have turned the platform into this kitchen sink list of laws that they would like to see passed. In addition to ex-gay therapy, the platform, by the way, also endorses the consumption of raw milk. There are planks in the party platform that talk about when people in the state of Texas should and should not water their lawns. I'm not kidding you. These are things that are in the Texas GOP platform. Thankfully, our job is limited. We're just pushing against the anti-gay rhetoric. There are a number of things that the Texas GOP would do well to reconsider having in its party platform. We're of course, focusing on the egregious anti-gay language in the party platform. We don't think that's a way to win elections.
But Gregory, I understand you're saying this is just a fringe, it's a small group, but they do obviously have some position of influence in the Texas GOP. So, and presumably they got those positions because people think they have some political influence or at least understanding. Do you think there are Texas Republicans out there in positions of authority who believe it can get them votes to take this kind of approach to this so-called therapy?
There are people out there who are ideological purists in this party. For that matter, I would point out that there are people who are ideological purists in the Democratic Party as well. Of course, today we're talking about the Texas GOP. Keeping this endorsement of ex-gay therapy in the party platform, assuming that this does get passed on Saturday when this goes to a full floor vote, would only serve to appease a small fringe of the Texas GOP. It would make a lot of them happy. Unfortunately, it would alienate far more people in the state of Texas. It would also alienate a number of Republicans. We're Log Cabin Republicans. There is no way we are supporting Democrats. We are Log Cabin Republicans. We're not independents, but certainly, there would be reason for a lot of Republicans to stay home on Election Day, whether or not you're a member of Log Cabin Republicans. If you're a common sense conservative, people know that this is not language that's going to do anybody any favors.
Ryan, Let me just bring in some of the political analysis here, because I want to bring up this ABC Washington Post poll that shows backing for gay marriage. 77% of 18 to 29-year-olds support gay marriage. 63% of those strongly. There is no future, Ryan, is there, for any political party, whether you call yourself a Republican group or a Democratic group, when you take this kind of position on LGBT issues?
No, and if you break those numbers down even further and take it down to young evangelicals, you find it, robustly increasing support for the LGBT community, even among evangelical conservatives. So, there's a movement among national Republicans to try to actually just do away with the entire process of state platforms, because they want to avoid this kind of thing, because it gives a platform to the die-hardest elements within the state party, but then it gets ratified by the rest of the state party. It would be one thing if you had half a dozen cranks, who took over a subcommittee and got this introduced as platform legislation, but then the party in general saw it and said, this is horrible. We can't put our name on this, but that's typically not what happens. Typically, it gets ratified by the state party, and then it becomes the kind of standard plank that all of these candidates statewide are running on. And there are a ton of national Republicans who would much rather not have that be connected to them at this time.
So, Gregory, how do you deal with that kind of scenario? Obviously, you're log cabin Republicans. You're trying to reposition Republicans across the country on these kinds of issues. If the Texas Republican Party comes out to back this kind of platform, it sets you back everywhere with Republicans, doesn't it?
It certainly has the potential to do that. Clearly, this discussion that's happening in Texas is generating national news. That's the reason I'm on with you right now, and why your viewers are aware of this. That's why it has become a national trend. We're in agreement on this. I don't see this as doing the Republican Party any favors. I'd point out that there are also planks in the Texas GOP platform that state that candidates need to support the entirety of the party's platform. Otherwise, they need to state the reasons why they are opposed. If we're going to really get into that type of litmus test in the GOP, then by all means, let's give all our candidates a questionnaire and ask them if they support the consumption of raw milk, if they would like to support laws that say you can water your lawn on these days and not on these days, and also if they support ex-gay therapy. Thankfully, I think that there are a lot of Republicans out there who, in addition to not supporting, not endorsing consumption of raw milk per se, would also not support ex-gay therapy.
Gregory, I understand what you're saying about this platform having fringe elements, but raw milk isn't offensive to large chunks of Americans. So, it's really not the same thing. It doesn't represent discrimination and trying to divide Americans.
Yeah, in one sense, I was just pointing out the absurdity of the Texas GOP's platform. And I will say that, the reason we're log cabin Republicans is because we feel that there are issues that the GOP and common sense conservatives can coalesce around. It is not ex-gay therapy. We have actively fought against so-called reparative therapy for years. Our sister think tank, Liberty Education Forum, has done a number of white papers on this issue. We work with certified medical doctors on this issue. And we are lobbying right now on the floor of the Texas State Convention, our delegates are, to try to make this case to common sense conservatives, as common sense conservatives, to take this language out of the party platform. It really has the potential to have repercussions beyond the state of Texas.
Gregory T. Angelo, I wish you good luck with that effort. And Ryan Grimm and Gregory, thank you very much for your time today.